Hi, it's time for a mail call video. Just one thing today. It's a big giant box that says NuTone on it. In fact, it says NuTone Housing Products Scoville. So you know if it says Scoville, it's from the old days and it's bound to be something really, really good. This came from another NuTone distributor who's clearing out some of his old stock stuff, and he got a hold of me because he knows that I'll buy something like this. We made a deal and he shipped it off and it came in a couple weeks ago. We're really busy this time of year, so I haven't had time to get to it, but I figured this morning would be a good time to open it up. We can do a little reveal here before we open the box. If I swing it around here on the end, you can see it's a NuTone N2600B Musicom stereo system receiver. And this is a brand new old stock one. In fact, it's got a date code here of J76. This would have been made or packaged sometime in October of 1976. And it was packed by Taylor. So good on you, Taylor. I hope you packed it well. I know it's been hanging around for a long time because realistically, this is more than 42 years old. And it's brand new. It's been on the guy's shelf since he bought it from NuTone back in the day. He's trying to get rid of some of his old inventory. So I think it might have been ordered for somebody named Kimmel, because that's on the box also. Maybe Kimmel flaked out and he didn't pick it up or decided he didn't want it. And for those of you who have, none of you have ever seen one of these new. In fact, to be honest with you, I've never seen one of these brand new in a box, because in 1976 I was still in high school. How about that? So this is a good find. We've got some installation instructions in the box that came with it. Wiring installation, system layout. The pages are kind of yellowed here, but it's got it all going on. Installation instructions here. And then down inside the box in its 1976 styrofoam ends, we can lift out our 2600 receiver. Tell you what, let's do this like this, because it's only suited that we sit it up on its box. It's too high. Put it down here, and we'll take it out of its styrofoam ends. And there we have a brand new old stock NuTone 2600 stereo AM/FM receiver. For those of you who are not familiar with what this is, back in the 70s, NuTone made their second to last stereo music intercom system, and that was the model N2500. This would be the AM/FM receiver portion of the system. It's not considered the master station. The master station was the model N2510, which was just the intercom control station for the system. This is just the AM/FM stereo receiver. And you have your input controls, bass, treble, balance, and volume, with some control switches over here, and your AM/FM tuning dial here across the front. Because stereo music intercom systems were never a really big seller because of the additional cost, and I think for a lot of people, having stereo speakers in rooms was an over-the-top idea for a lot of people. They were always a specialty system, which means that you didn't sell as many of them as you did more common systems. The next model down from this back in the day would have been a 2561, or it would have been a 2540. To help boost sales, NuTone came up with the idea of turning this unit, the N2500, into an N2600. And the only thing that really made it different, the only thing that transformed it from one model to another, is down here on the faceplate. It says solid state N2600, and that's just a little label that's applied over where it says solid state N2500. So the 2500 and the 2600 are identical models. There is absolutely no difference in the two models except for the label down here. And the idea of the 2600 was, well, you could install this and you could wire it up to some speakers, and you could have just a stereo in-wall music system. No intercom, because you didn't have the N2510. So it was just to be used primarily as in-wall music receiver. I don't think that idea ever really went very far, because realistically you could only connect, as this sits out of the box, one pair of stereo speakers. So you would typically have this maybe in the family room built into the wall, and then on either side you'd have, or across the room maybe, you would have a pair of 8-inch stereo speakers. And that was it. That's pretty limited, and this was kind of expensive to do something like that with. What you could also do would be then, if you wanted more speakers, you would have to buy the N2510 and use that as your wiring hub, and then put in more speakers through the house. And eventually what you ended up with was an N2500 stereo music intercom system. So it was kind of convoluted, and I think because of that, it wasn't actually a really big seller. So the N2500 and the N2600 are really identical things, and they're actually a really good design. It's a little hard to see, and I have a multi-part video where I take one of these apart and rebuild it, and it's a little hard to see because it's all sort of encased in this metal chassis, so none of it's really very exposed. You can kind of see down inside some of what's going on. This right here, this is the power supply board here. This cardboard cover covers up the amplifier boards, which are on the back down here and here. These are your big giant Molex connectors where everything plugs into. There's wiring harnesses that come with the rough end, and everything plugs into that. And down here on the end, it's a good model. We've got a bunch of big old TO3 output transistors down here. This is the early version where you have temperature sensing diodes for each pair of transistors. One's here and one's down here to help prevent thermal runaway. This is a good old school style AM/FM stereo receiver. On the control panel here, see if we can line it up. You've got your headphone. You have a headphone jack here. It's a 1/4-inch stereo jack. You have record and intercom record, so you can record. If you bought the optional cassette player recorder, you could record onto blank cassettes off your phonograph or off the radio, or you could also record intercom conversations, which I'm not sure why people would want to do that. You have a stereo and mono switch for your FM reception. You have loudness on and off. Loudness adds more bass into the music, and you have automatic frequency control for your FM tuner so it doesn't drift. So it's a pretty feature-packed unit, and this is actually designed very much like what you would see in a mid-level home stereo receiver of the day. So you might be thinking, well, this is a real find. It's brand new in the box, it's ready to go. Somebody needs a replacement. All they have to do is buy this from me and pop it in the wall, plug in the Molex connectors and turn it on, and you're ready to go. No, not exactly, because this is 42 years old. Even though it's brand new, old stock, never been installed, probably never been turned on, it still is going to require some work before it's put back into daily use. Contrary to what people think, components age just sitting on the shelf. Parts like capacitors actually have a shelf life. If you go to a capacitor manufacturer's website and you look at a data sheet for any particular capacitor, these would be pretty run-of-the-mill sort of general purpose capacitors that are in here, nothing really fancy. You'll see that they'll be rated for their life in numbers of hours in use at a particular temperature. Usually it's 85 degrees C or 105 degrees C, depending on the quality of the capacitor. If you calculate that down into real-world temperatures, you'll find that your average general purpose capacitor will last usually somewhere between 20-25 years or so with normal daily use. And that's pretty good. However, if you look further on data sheets, you'll find that they also will give it a shelf life rating. And the shelf life is how long can it sit on the shelf before it starts to degrade and so forth. And I can tell you, without ever having looked one up, for one of these type of capacitors, it's not going to be 42 years. While a lot of these may be fine, a lot of them may not be. And what will happen is, if I were to take them out now and test them, they most likely would measure okay. They probably would seem to be fine. But once you power this up and you start to put some hours on it, if they are past their shelf life, they will start to degrade rapidly, and you'll start to have failures, and that'll create all kinds of other problems. So the idea that you can buy something that's new old stock that's been sitting on some guy's warehouse shelf for 40 years and just put it in and expect to get 25 or 30 years out of it is kind of wrong. Now, one of the advantages to models like this is that this is one of the models that has a real on-off switch right here. The main volume control switch right here, it has a real, you can hear it, mechanical on-off switch. So when you turn this down and you click it off, it's off. It's off. It's not partially powered up. It's not like your big screen TV that's got a blue light glowing around the power button and you know it's kind of on a little bit all the time waiting for you to turn it back on. This is truly off. And systems that are truly off usually have a much longer service life than systems that are on all the time, the kind of systems they started to make around 1984, because units like this, systems like this, they spend a lot of their life turned off. Because the normal thing that people do is at night, when it's time to go to bed, what do? You walk around, you lock the doors, you turn off all the lights, and for most people, they turn off the intercom system. Now, NuTone didn't really want you to turn off the intercom system. It could have been left on all the time, so it was always ready to go. You know, if you got that late night pizza delivery at 2:30 in the morning, you'd be able to tell the pizza delivery kid, hey, I'll be right there. But you can't because you've got it turned off. But by having it turned off, it increases the service life of the unit. It's not uncommon for sets like this to maybe go 30, 35 years before they need their first rebuild because half of that time they've been left turned off. But you can't discount the shelf life. And this is an important factor because I talk to at least a couple people a month that, well, I see some guy on eBay and he's got this new old stock, never installed intercom, such and such model and everything. And can I just buy that and put it in and it'll be great? Well, it might be great for a while, but odds are it'll start to develop problems, usually within the first year or so, because it's got a shelf life. It's been sitting in some guy's warehouse, especially if the warehouse has been really hot, and that helps accelerate the aging of the components. So the final question, the question that I'm always asked around here when something like this shows up is, this is great, what are you going to do with it? Well, what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to put it back in its box and I'm going to tape it up and I'm going to put it up on the shelf in my storage area. And one day someone will come along who needs a replacement N2500 or N2600. Maybe they're restoring a system, maybe they bought a house and the receiver is missing, or whatever the situation is. Maybe it's damaged to the point where it's not practical to repair it, although that's pretty rare. But someday someone will come along and they'll go, hey, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And then what we'll do is we'll make a deal on it, and then it will be totally rebuilt just like we do on used units because I want it to be reliable. It should work well. Once it's rebuilt, the tuner should still be aligned. It doesn't really have any age in that respect, and that will make it a fairly straightforward rebuild to do. It'll end up in somebody's house as part of a system or a new system. We're actually working with a customer right now who's having a house built in Austin, Texas. It's a mid-century modern reproduction house, brand new, but mid-century modern nevertheless. Think Jetsons, that's what it looks like. I'm sure George Jetson would love to live there. They're actually installing, as during new construction, a NuTone 2400 stereo system that they bought used from someone in Dallas, Texas, and they're going to be sending the tuner and the amplifier to me to have it rebuilt, and they're wiring up speakers all through the house, and it's part of their mid-century modern theme, and they think it's extra cool to have a original mid-century modern system in their new mid-century modern house. So that's it. That's the mail call for today. I hope you found this interesting and perhaps helpful. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up on YouTube because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel, put in your email address, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.